Hey everyone, Todd Michael Putnam here from D&D Creative Table Designs, and I just want to do a second video real quick talking about how I use the tiles to help visually tell the story in my Minds of Madness adventure that I created. Obviously everybody understands you lay out the tiles and you can see them and they look great, but I wanted to go specifically into the methodology of how I use the tiles in order to help convey the story itself. So, and the super short version of the story, I have a previous video, obviously, it goes in depth about the story and you can get all the details in that. But the super short overarch is there's a mine that the town above feels that it's haunted or something because suddenly their miners are dying, they're missing, they're going crazy and then falling over dead. And that's because it's actually been they made the mistake of burrowing too deep and accidentally went into the burrows of the I should say mining too deep and ran into the burrows of the Scorpay. And the Scorpay is a race I created, homebrewed, sort of like a mixture of the Borg and aliens from Star Trek and the Aliens universe, where this insect race, again I call it the Scorpay, the way that they adapt and survive is they'll go and they'll feed on various victims. They're carnivores, obviously, but some of their victims, when they inject them with the poison, they don't die, and they drag them back into the main nest, and they web them up, but they don't web them up in order to be eaten by the eggs when they hatch, like you would expect. Instead, what happens is when the larvae come out of the eggs, they crawl over and attach themselves to the spines of their victims, and whatever that creature was, it now gets morphed into a new version of the race of Scorpay. So it could be like a worker type thing. It could have, in this case, if because they now got a hold of miners, they're getting bipedal type versions of themselves. They've got ones here that they've got a scorpion stinger tail from when they actually absorbed scorpions. They have their venom because they absorbed spiders and stuff. So they're a race that's in constant flux in terms of expanding outwards, starting from one version of themselves and expanding out to a myriad of versions of themselves. But they're also a new race. They just started, and it's only been a few generations that this has been happening. So they don't have ancient history or anything behind them. And they don't have great intelligence, although they are becoming more intelligent as they absorb things. So they're at one end of the spectrum, but then the war that's going on is between them and the Yawning T, who are in some ways polar opposites, although they mirror them. And that is to say that the Yawning T, they started off as human, but they're all going towards that perfect Ophidian snake form that they're looking for. And so there's a variety of Yawning T shapes as well. There's snake-like men that have legs and arms and stuff. There's ones that have the torsos of a top end of a human, but their bottom part of their body is the snake kind of thing. There's ones that are completely going into the I want to say anathemas, I think is what they're called, right? The giant snake men. There's ones that have snake-like hair appendages and stuff. So they all have this variety. Some have scales on their skin. There's this massive variety with the Yawning T as well, just like there's a variety for the Scorpay, but it's the opposite in that they're all striving for one perfect, in their minds, perfect form, whereas the Scorpay are the opposite. They're striving for a myriad of forms. And where the Scorpay is a new race, and they're coming up in the evolutionary chain, as it were, the Yawning T again are the polar opposite. They've been around for thousands of years. They once dominated the world and lost it. They're filled with ancient culture, and they've perfected their culture and their society, which is strictly rigid and limited, based on how snake-like a being is. It's a strict caste society, whereas the Scorpay, they don't have that. They're just going for infinite variety, and they will overwhelm their opponents and dominate because they are so incredibly adaptable. So there's this huge culture war between the two that is going on. And what I wanted to talk about is how I use the tiles in order to convey that difference. And there's several different ways. Number one, if you look at it, the Scorpay side of things has a lot of elevation that I used, especially right here in the mound, in the hive itself. I used a lot of elevation on this side, and also in the caverns, having the stalactites and stalagmites. There's a lot of elevation going on. The polar opposite is where there's some flat sections, but mostly it's an elevated type build. On the other side with the Yawning T, it's mostly a flat type build with only a little bit of elevation going on right here in the center. So they're kind of the opposites of one another. It's a way of visually conveying the difference in the cultures between the two. Another difference, obviously, is that the Yawning T have worked stone and intricate craftsmanship and everything that's going on in their civilization. They've got ornate jewels and craftsmanship and basically art that conveys the civilization that they're at. But the Scorpay, on the other hand, are all natural caverns and burrows that they've dug. So it's the polar opposite between the two that you can see. And of course, the dividing line between the two of them is this river of light, the magma that's underneath, separating a clear boundary between the two societies, between the two civilizations and species. So another thing that I used in order to convey the difference between the two is the Scorpay have one single light in the center of their hive. It's an obsidian black stone with a red light to it, so conveying essentially that is the heart of the hive. That is the magic, the blasphemous magic that is basically mutating the Scorpay and gave them their start with the mysterious origins of wherever that black obsidian stone came from. One single light that's not flickering, that's just there in the center of the hive. But if you go to the Yawning T side, it's a myriad of lights that are flickering, spread out through all of the society. Again, it's the polar opposite between the two. It's a way of using the tiles to convey visually something that things are completely different between these two cultures. So I just want to talk about that and my methodology for helping to tell the story with the tiles. It's not just about laying the tiles out and okay, here you've got some dungeons and here you've got some caverns. You can use the tiles to actually help tell your story in a way where you as a DM don't have to describe it in detail and give your players what I call description fatigue, where you're sitting there and talking for 20 minutes at a time or whatever, and eventually they kind of stop listening because they're not sure what's important and what's not. Here, you can just give a few brief sentences about stuff, and the tiles will tell the story for you about the difference between the two cultures, the two races. So just wanted to put that out there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Appreciate all your comments and your feedback. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content. And I look forward to seeing you the next adventure video. Take care and have a happy new year.